Comes just weeks before he was scheduled for trial.
I accept your plea of guilty in both of these cases. I find that your pleas of guilty were freely and voluntarily made and that you were competent to enter those pleas in both cases.
Sheffield is sentenced to 50 years in prison.
50 years is not good enough for you.
Yes, I promise to God, I'm going to blow your head off, man. I'm not going to touch you. I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm not going to touch you. You're wrong for what you did to my brother. You murdered my brother. You shot my brother over 13 times, man.
2 years later, and the pain that we feel is still there. You didn't even know nothing about. I hate you. I hate you. I pray you never see daylight again.
In 2022, Kevin Sheffield committed 2 brutal murders that shocked both the local community and the families of the victims. The crime, which seemed to have no clear motive, left investigators and family members alike searching for answers. Sheffield, a man with no significant prior history of violent crime, was swiftly arrested and charged with the killings after evidence linked him to the scene. His cold demeanor and lack of explanation for his actions only deepened the mystery and pain felt by the victims' families. The court proceedings were lengthy, as the legal process moved through various stages of investigation, pretrial motions, and witness testimonies.
What you did to my brother, may God have mercy on your soul.
Prosecutors worked diligently to build a strong case against Sheffield, relying on forensic evidence, witness statements, and surveillance footage that placed him at the scene of both murders. The lack of an apparent motive made the case challenging, as Sheffield remained tight-lipped throughout much of the trial, refusing to provide any reasoning for his actions.
Just walking back from the store and bullets hit him left and right for no reason. No reason.
Nevertheless, the jury found him guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, Sheffield's cold and emotionless demeanor persisted. Despite the heinous nature of the crime, he showed little to no remorse for his actions.
I don't know what kind of parents you was raised by. I don't know what your mind was going through. And I don't even know what type of animal you are. But you didn't have to kill my brother.
The judge ultimately sentenced Sheffield to 50 years in prison, a decision that brought some closure to the case but left many questions unanswered. However, the true emotional climax of the trial occurred during the victim impact statements, when the family members of the 2 victims were finally given the opportunity to confront the man who had taken their loved ones from them. In a packed courtroom, with tensions running high, family members stepped forward to address Sheffield directly. The victims' families had endured months of emotional agony, and this moment provided them a chance to speak their truth, voice their grief, and express their outrage at the senseless nature of the killings.
That you repent and you ask God for total forgiveness. Because I can't give it to you. I just can't.
Sheffield's plea deal.
It was a powerful moment, filled with raw emotion and heart-wrenching testimonies from people who had lost so much. One of the victims, Sarah Jenkins, was a mother of 2 and a beloved figure in her community. Her sister, Amy Jenkins, was the first to speak.
You didn't even know nothing about. I hate you. I hate you.
Her voice shaking with anger and sorrow, she recounted the horror of losing Sarah so suddenly and violently. You took away my best friend, my sister, my children's aunt. And for what? We still don't know why. You've shown no remorse, no explanation, and that's the hardest part. How can we even begin to heal when we don't understand why you did this?
But I really hope you ask for forgiveness. Because their blood is on your hands.
Amy's words echoed throughout the courtroom, reflecting the confusion and deep hurt that permeated the lives of Sarah's family and friends. The second victim, Michael Dawson, was a young man in his early 20s who had just started his career as an electrician. His mother, Linda Dawson, took the stand next.
I don't know what your mind was going through, and I don't even know what type of animal you are. But you didn't have to kill my brother.
Through tears, she described the unbearable pain of losing her only son. You didn't just kill Michael, you killed our entire family. There's a hole in our hearts that will never be filled because of you. He had his whole life ahead of him, and you ripped that away from him for no reason. You've ruined so many lives, and I hope you live every day in that prison, knowing what you've done. Other family members shared similar sentiments, each one recounting the deep sense of loss and devastation that Sheffield's actions had caused. Some were angry, others were grief-stricken, but all of them were united in their desire to see Sheffield held accountable for the pain he had inflicted on their families. As each person spoke, Sheffield remained emotionless, staring straight ahead and refusing to make eye contact with anyone in the room. His lack of response further enraged some of the family members, who were desperate to see any sign of regret or acknowledgement from him.
2 years, I waited for this day, just to see you. But you against my brother, you didn't kill him, you murdered my brother. You shot my brother. Went down the street, come back and shot my brother again. Come back and watch my brother die.
In the aftermath of the trial, many questions remained unanswered. Why had Sheffield committed these murders? What had driven him to such violence? Investigators had found no clear connections between Sheffield and the victims, and Sheffield himself refused to provide any insight into his motivations. The lack of a motive only added to the emotional burden faced by the victims' families, as they struggled to make sense of the senseless. Sheffield's defense attorneys had tried to argue that he suffered from mental health issues, suggesting that he was not in full control of his actions at the time of the murders. However, this defense was largely rejected by both the prosecution and the jury, who believed that Sheffield was fully aware of what he was doing. The judge, in handing down the 50-year sentence, expressed his belief that Sheffield posed a continuing danger to society and needed to be removed from it for a significant period of time. Given Sheffield's age, the sentence effectively meant that he would spend the majority, if not all, of the rest of his life behind bars.
I accept your plea of guilty in both of these cases. I find that your pleas of guilty were freely and voluntarily made and that you were competent to enter those pleas in both cases.
The sentencing marked the end of one chapter in their long journey toward healing, but the scars left by Sheffield's actions would never fully heal. Many of them spoke about how their lives had been irreparably changed by the murders. "There's no moving on from this," said Amy Jenkins outside the courthouse after the sentencing. "We'll carry this pain with us for the rest of our lives. There's no closure when someone you love is taken from you in such a violent, senseless way. All we can do now is try to live in a way that honors Sarah's memory, but it's hard when there are still so many unanswered questions."
2 years, because I promised to God I would blow your head off, man. I'm not gonna touch you. I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm not gonna touch you.
In interviews following the trial, some family members expressed frustration with the justice system, particularly with the fact that Sheffield had been allowed to remain silent throughout the proceedings. "We still don't know why this happened," Linda Dawson said in one interview. "We're glad he's going to prison, but it doesn't feel like justice when we don't have the full story. We deserve to know why our loved ones were killed." While the court case officially closed with Sheffield's sentencing, the emotional and psychological fallout for the victims' families continued. Grief counselors and support groups were made available to help them cope with the trauma they had experienced, but many acknowledged that no amount of counseling could erase the pain of losing a loved one in such a horrific way. As Sheffield began serving his sentence in a maximum security prison, the community where the murders had taken place continued to grapple with the shock of the crime.